In this episode, learn how to create a weekly workout program for yourself that you can follow anywhere, even at home during the lockdown. I also reveal my secrets to staying disciplined, and we talk about when to push your body and when to rest. This and much, much more in today's episode. Improve your health, optimize your nutrition, perform at your peak level, increase your lifespan, build a powerful mindset. This is Parekh, and welcome to the Alpha X podcast. Hello. I hope you are doing well today. Welcome to the Alpha X podcast. This is Parekh. And my goal here today is to make you physically, mentally, and spiritually strong. That's the whole point of the Alpha X podcast. That is why I wanted to go ahead and do this. In fact, to be very honest with you, I've been playing around with some idea, some way of being able to interact with all of you, interact with people who are interested in optimizing themselves physically, mentally, spiritually, optimizing their lives, taking their lives to the next level. I've always been very passionate about performing at your best, being at your best. I think self growth has always been a central part of my own study, my own self study, my own journey, I would say. And I've always tried to push the envelope, either physically, mentally, in my career, in my finances, and it's become a passion. And I'm really excited to bring this passion to you. So, what can you expect from the Alpha X podcast? Well, I'm going to be bringing in a lot of interesting people, a lot of fascinating people with fascinating stories, people who are the best in their area of speciality. I'm going to be talking to athletes, I'm going to be talking to businessmen, I'm going to be talking to artists, I'm going to be talking to coaches. My focus is I'm going to be trying to figure out what makes these people unique, what makes these people successful. And this platform isn't just a soapbox for me to stand up on and speak to you on. I want to hear from you. I want to know what you guys want me to talk about. So if there's anything specific, or any kind of feedback, or any questions that you want to send me, anything about becoming physically, mentally, and spiritually strong, anything about peak performance, anything about getting better, improving yourself, performing at your best, you guys can just send me an email. My email ID is info@jayparekh.co. So that's info@JayParekh.co. So if you got something interesting that you want me to comment upon, or you want me to answer, you got some questions, you want to be on the show, that's the email that you have to shoot a mail on. So anyway, I want to get started today with answering a few quick questions. So I don't have any plans for how I'm going to be doing this podcast today, this episode. I'm just going to be reading off a few questions that I've received, and I'm just going to do my best to answer them. And let's see how this goes. So the first question today is from Anonymous. How do you train at home during the lockdown? Okay. So I'll just tell you about what I do. I'll give you guys a quick rundown of my training routine, how it's changed. So before the lockdown, I would spend about 50% of my training time under doing jujitsu, and wrestling, and the other 50% of my time was spent mainly doing strength and conditioning work. Now, that's basically lifting heavy weights at the gym, doing a bit of hypertrophy work, doing a bit of strength work, and that was pretty much what I was doing. Now, of course, with the lockdown, jujitsu is completely out. We're no longer, I'm not doing any jujitsu, any sort of training happening over there. So it's given me the opportunity to focus on my strength, and it's given me the opportunity to focus on hypertrophy, and that's basically muscle growth. So the routine that I'm following right now is more geared towards gaining muscle, gaining size, and it's also geared towards recovery. So another very important thing that I am keeping in mind during this lockdown period, during the pandemic period, is I'm very aware of the fact that there's a lot of stress that's coming in from the news, from the lockdown situation, from the fact that I'm stuck at home. And although it may not necessarily be making me lose my mind, I know it's there. So my training routine has adjusted, where I'm not just spending time working on my body, but I'm also working on my mind. So to answer this question, I'm gonna answer it in two parts. So number one is, what am I doing to take care of my physical body, and what am I doing to take care of my mind? Okay. So when it comes to my physical body, I'm basically following a legs, chest, back split. So I do legs, I do back first, then I do legs, and then I do upper body, chest. And then I either take a break, or more often than not, I will do a light cardio day, followed by some stretching on the fourth day, and then I'll repeat everything again. So in my ideal week, not that every week is ideal, but my ideal week right now in the lockdown looks like me hitting my back, my biceps hard on day one, my legs hard on day two, my chest, tricep, shoulders hard on day three, and then I take a rest day where I do a lot of recovery work, a lot of stretching, cardio, that sort of stuff, or maybe I just rest. And then I'll repeat the 3 days again. So in a week, effectively, I'm hitting all my body parts twice. Okay. I am also focusing a lot nowadays on my arms, because this has been an area that I've never been able to focus on before. When you're doing a lot of jujitsu training and sport training, it's difficult to really zero in and focus on the smaller muscles, because then they don't heal for sport training. So, right now, I've just been focusing on hypertrophy training and recovery. Now, on the recovery stand of things, what I'm doing is I'm doing a lot of meditation, a lot of stretching, a lot of slow, steady cardio, a lot of breath work. I've recently taken up Wim Hof breathing, and that's been really helpful and very, very good at relaxing my body and helping me really uh, get in touch with my. I wouldn't really say being mindful as such, but what it has helped me do is realize that I've not been breathing properly. I think that's one realization that I've got through the Wim Hof, and it's helped me slow down my breathing, slow down, the because most of us are doing a lot of shallow breaths, and so deeper breaths, slower breathing, which really helps in activating the parasympathetic nervous system, which is the part of our nervous system which helps relax the body and put it in that recovery state, right? So I'm doing a lot more of that purposely than I was doing before, and I think that's been really helpful. In terms of the exercises that I use for my body, so remember that the exercises are going to change for different people depending upon their levels. So, what I would say is, it's not so much about the exercise, because the way that I've the way that I build my program is that I use obviously pulling exercises for my back, and there are two kinds of pulling exercises, vertical and horizontal. Similarly, when we're talking about the chest, you have pushing exercises, again vertical and horizontal. An example of a vertical pull exercise is the pull up, obviously. The horizontal pull exercise is the row. The horizontal push exercise is a push up. Okay, and the vertical push exercise is something like a military press, for example. Now at home, what I do is I use calisthenic variants of those exercises, so body weight variants of those exercises. And I do have some more detailed articles for people who want to know how they could build a program for themselves at home. There is a calisthenics for beginners article on my website. I'm going to link that somewhere in the show notes so you can go ahead and check that out, and that will give you sort of a step by step system, a step by step plan that you could use to make your own routine. So that's completely free, by the way. You can just go to my website and get that. So it's actually been really easy for me to keep fit during the lockdown, because all I've been doing is I've been sort of following my my calisthenics routine. But remember, whether you're trying to build muscle or gain strength, the principles always remain the same. So for example, when you're trying to gain muscle, when you're trying to induce hypertrophy, you want to stick to the 6 to 10 or the 8 to 12 rep range. So broadly between 6 and 12 reps is a good is a good, let's say, ballpark figure. It's a good ballpark figure for anybody that's looking to gain muscle, and it's going to be about progression. It's always going to be about getting hitting more reps or getting in more sets, so increasing volume or increasing intensity. So you do that by increasing reps, or you do that by increasing the intensity of the exercise. So in the case of calisthenics, what you could do is make the exercise more difficult. Now, how you do that really depends upon the exercise itself. Again, there are a lot of guides out there. I have a few. I'm going to put them in the show notes so you guys can go and check them out. But there is no reason why you cannot at least keep fit in the lockdown. It's not that difficult. If you guys have more specific questions about which exercises I use for specific body parts, or if you have any questions about how I design my routine, any more detailed questions, please send them to me. My email ID, it's info at jparekh.co. Send me your questions and I will answer them in another episode. So the next question, also by Anonymous, is how do you stay so disciplined all the time? I want to work out regularly and eat healthy, but I have no discipline. Okay, I personally do not believe in discipline. If you actually come and see me, I am not a disciplined person. I actually don't have discipline. So the way that I go about creating discipline in me is I I hack my environment so that I don't need discipline. Okay, for example, when it comes to eating healthy, I actually don't keep junk food at home. As far as possible, I will not keep junk food at home. I will not give myself the choice when I am feeling weak, when I am depleted, when I've had a hard day of work, when I have had decision making fatigue by doing things all day, making decisions all day. It becomes, see, the more decision making fatigue that you develop by going through your normal day, it becomes harder to, by the end of the day, to actually make good decisions about your health, which is why a lot of people prefer going to the gym in the morning, because they want to get the hard thing out of the way first, you know. But what I try to do is I try to hack my environment, create an environment for me in such a way where I don't really have to actively use so much discipline. So if I don't have, for example, unhealthy snacks at home, I'm not going to snack on unhealthy things. If I have healthy alternatives, that's what I'm going to reach for, because I don't even have an option, right? So even when I go shopping, I make sure another good strategy is to not be hungry, to not be famished when you go for shopping. Make sure that you've had a good meal before you go shopping. The likelihood that you will grab things that are bad for you when you are satiated is so much more less. It's incredible, right? So that's one thing that I do. And the second thing that I do, which I think really has an influence on my discipline, is my belief system about discipline. And that is that I don't really believe that I need discipline. I don't need discipline because I have something that's more important and so much more potent and powerful, okay, which is purpose. I really believe that a man or a woman with purpose does not need discipline. That's because my goals are bigger than me. My what I want to achieve is bigger than me, right? When I'm in the gym, I'm not just in the gym for myself, but I'm trying out different things and different exercises, and I'm getting better because I want to bring this information to you. I'm in service of something greater. And I also want to be as healthy as possible because I know that if I am as healthy as possible, I can do a better job, right? So for me, discipline comes down to hacking my environment. It comes down to knowing my purpose, knowing why I do the things that I do. And of course, there are times when I do need to exercise discipline. I do need to exercise willpower. But then those are times few and far in between. And because I have rationed my willpower, I have conserved it for those difficult times in my life, that it's so much easier to do things that may which may have normally made it very difficult for me. So for example, let me give you a quick example of something like this. Let's say working out. Okay, so I have a routine when it comes to training, and like I said, I don't keep any junk food at home. So when it does come to me focusing on my business, I think that's the thing that requires the most amount of willpower. So I basically ration all of my willpower. I save all of my willpower, all of my discipline to work on the thing that I feel right now is the hardest for me to work on, which is my business. Okay, so I do that. And another thing that I do, which helps it make it much easier, is that I have my systems in place for things that I want to do. For example, when I was writing my book, I had a system where I would write 500 words every day. So it doesn't matter if it was 500 crappy words, 500 brilliant words, if it was 500 words spread throughout the day or in 1 hour chunks, but I would write 500 words every single day. That was my system that would that enabled me rather to finish my book, and I wrote that book cover to cover in 2 months' time. So setting up a system, knowing why I'm doing it, that's purpose. Setting up a system, that's the foolproof mechanism that enabled me to keep working despite not feeling like it, despite not having the willpower, conserving my willpower for things that are hard to do, and hacking my environment so that I don't need willpower wasted on things that are that I don't need to spend them on, like for example making good eating decisions. I think that has it's a combination of these four factors that maybe gives an illusion of some superhuman ability to be disciplined, but trust me, I am not the most disciplined guy in the world. I don't need to be, neither do you, to be very honest with you, especially if you're following these hacks, these 4 points that I've explained to you just now. So the next question for today's podcast comes from Tin, and he writes, so, how do I know when is the right time to push my body and when is the right time to rest? So, that's a very interesting question. And to give a little context, so Tin is a martial artist. I actually met him when I was solo tripping in Phuket. We were training together at the Phuket top team. That's where we met. In fact, we had a whole group of people that used to train together, and a group of common friends that we made over there, and we still stay in touch. So thank you, Tin, for the question. And I think to understand where he's coming from, as a martial artist, what I've realized, a lot of martial artists, a lot of athletes, a lot of people who are competitive, who are performance oriented, struggle with is they don't really have a problem going that extra mile that people need to go in order to progress when it comes to their physical fitness. But what does happen is that they do find it difficult to back off. They do find it difficult to realize where the line is between going their maximum, doing their best, and then going into danger zone and moving into an intensity which might do them more harm, might actually give them an injury or something like that. So it's very important to understand how to balance your training in such a way that you are doing your maximum so that you progress at the most efficient rate, but at the same time, you don't overstep your boundaries and end up injuring yourself. So, how do you do that? Well, I personally keep a track of a few physiological metrics, a few things that you can keep a track of in your body, in the way that you feel, a few metrics that will help you figure this out. So, number one is I measure my sleep and the quality of my sleep. So, if my quality of my sleep isn't good, it doesn't mean that I'm overtraining, but it could be one of the things that's happening. It could be because of the fact that I'm training too much and my body is just moved past that phase where it's able to recover. So sometimes if I'm not sleeping well, then I need to back off my training anyway, whether it's because of overtraining or because of stress. So that's one thing I look at. The second thing that I look at is my resting heart rate. So measuring your resting heart rate in the morning is a very good idea. It gives you a little bit of a indication of how recovered you are. The more recovered you are, the lower your heart rate will be. Now everybody's resting heart rate is different. Usually the more fitter you are, the lower your resting heart rate is. Mine is around the mid 50s, like low 60s. That's my resting heart rate. But it depends. It depends on how fit you are, you know and once you figure out what your normal resting heart rate is, which you can do by just measuring it regularly for a week and averaging it out, you can then use that number to see if you ever have a huge bump. So let's say you wake up in the morning and you're not feeling particularly good. You measure your resting heart rate and you see that you're a good 10 beats per minute higher than you normally should be. Now, that means that your body is telling you, listen, I am not recovered. I need to do something to stimulate recovery in the body. You need to do something to stimulate recovery in the body. So that's a good indicator as well, your resting heart rate. Apart from that, another good indicator is appetite. When my appetite is bad, I know that there's something that I need to figure out. I need to adjust in my body, and also generally the way that my body feels. So typically when you're overtraining, then instead of improving, you actually start to go down. You have aches, pains in the body that may not have been there before. So that's a good indication as well that okay, it's time to relax before something drastic happens. Yeah. For people who have experience using technology, another thing that you could look into is HRV, which is heart rate variability. Personally, I really haven't had a lot of experience using HRV yet. I am looking to get my hands on an HRV monitor soon, and I will be reviewing them. I will be coming back to you with more information on HRV because that's an area I am really interested in. But that's another thing that you could look into, but I'm not going to talk about it right now because I don't have a lot of experience with it yet. Anyway, what do you do? How do you manage this? How do you make sure that you don't overstep the boundaries and you don't go into injury or you don't go into overtraining? Well, number one, I just like to say that it's a little hard for most people to get into that overtraining zone. Um, However, if you do fall in that rarity where you're an athlete or a fighter and you are training maybe twice a day or three times a day, or maybe you're doing intense sessions every day, there might be a chance that you might overtrain. It certainly happened with me. It's happened with athletes that I've worked with. So what you could do is, instead of leaving it up to chance, instead of going in every day and giving it your all and killing yourself in the gym, what you could do is follow a routine that has a stimulation phase, a high intensity max phase, and a recovery phase, and then back to stimulation. So here's what I mean by that. Okay, let's say I'm going to take a weightlifting routine, and I'm going to give you an example of a routine which follows this sequence based on lifting weights. So let's say that I do a full body heavy weightlifting routine on Monday that's meant for stimulation. So what I'm going to do is, I am not going to go to my max. I'm going to go heavy, but I'm going to go moderately heavy. I am not going to push it till I am finished. Okay, I'm not going to go to failure. Okay, that's stimulation. I'm going to leave about 2 to 3 reps in the gas tank. Okay, then when it comes to Wednesday, which is going to be my second weightlifting routine for second weightlifting session for that week. Okay, for first session being Monday, which is stimulation. The second session, which is my high intensity, heavy max day. So that's the day when I'm really going to push it. That's the day when I am really going to give it my all. I am going to go till failure. I'm going to go heavy. I'm going to do my best. Okay, this is where I set my personal records, my PRs. Okay, and then on Friday, I'll still do a full body routine, but I am going to go light. I'll reduce the weight, I'll reduce the volume. The idea is to recover. The idea is to give my body just enough stimulation that it recovers, but not enough stimulation that there's real wear and tear. Okay, and then again on Monday I'm going to go back to stimulation. So that's a very simple example. It can get way more complex. You can have a routine which goes Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and figure out how you're going to adjust your intensity, just so that you have a stimulation phase, high intensity phase, and a recovery phase. You can also do it with your martial arts. Again, vary the intensity of your martial arts sessions and figure it out. It's about playing around. It's about figuring out what works for you, what doesn't work for you. But this is one way, this sort of routine, this sort of changing of intensity during the week is one way that I stave off my overtraining, my tendency to overtrain, and still keep progressing week after week after week. So I hope that answers your question. Thank you so much for tuning in, guys. That's it for today's podcast. My name is Parekh, and I want to ask you, I want to open a dialogue with all of y'all. I want to be straight with all of y'all. I want you guys to have an open communication with me. I'm giving you my email ID, info@jayparekh.co. Send me your questions. I'm going to be doing these podcasts every week. I also have a few really cool guests coming down very soon. People from the martial arts world, people from the business world, people who are going to be talking about training, relationships, success, money, following your passion. And at the end of the day, my goal is to make you physically, mentally, and spiritually strong. And I'm not going to stop until I get you there. This has been the Alpha X Podcast. Thank you for tuning in.